But welcome to Kicking It with Sensei, and today we're joined by Bartitsu expert and Bartitsu lab owner, Tommy Moore. So would you like to give the audience a wee bit of background about yourself, Tommy?
Yeah, no worries. So I'm a lifelong boxer and judoka. So when I was about 5, I got moved into boxing. A lot of members of my family box. It's kind of a big family deal to me. Coming from a big group of gingers, you got to learn how to punch people in the face. It's an important thing to do.
Yeah.
And judo. So I was very fortunate to get into those two arts. Over time, I've added things to my catalogue: Jeet Kune Do, Muay Thai, different wrestling systems, catch wrestling. But at the moment, I teach an art called Bartitsu, which is an old Victorian kind of mixed martial art for self-defense, I would say, which comprises bare knuckle boxing, savate, which is a French kickboxing system, wrestling and jiu-jitsu and weapons work. So I really like it. I really enjoy it.
Excellent. And how did you first come across Bartitsu and HEMA in general?
So essentially, when I came across HEMA, I'm into history. I love history. I love historical films. I love historical books. I've always been involved in Eastern weaponry. So Kali, Btitsu, Krabi Krabong, so the Thai boxing weapon system. So I was already familiar with weapon skill sets. And I went on a whim to an event called Fight Camp, which is like the HEMA community is like biggest deal. All the big instructors, they go to Fight Camp every year. And I went there on a whim. I'd never really picked up a Western sword in my life. I had to go a couple of the seminars. I was only about 16, 17 and got the bug. I was lucky that when I went to university, the Academy of Historical Fencing in Newport is based there. So the Thomas brothers, that gave me a good grounding and understanding of HEMA. And I've just been going to more and more events, meeting different people. And I came across unarmed HEMA. Now, that's a really niche part of what is historical European martial arts. But there's a really good group of people that are very into it. But one thing I noticed was a lot of them hadn't had any combat experience. Not many of them had ever fought before or been in any of the kind of grittier arts. They're doing it from a very academic standpoint. So as I start to research more and I come across Bartitsu, I've already got all the skill sets that are in Bartitsu from what I've always grown up doing. So I decided to make my club, the Btitsu Lab, and build it around what I feel is more the original Bartitsu story. It's a club made up of people that can box, can wrestle, can fence. They're active guys. They're into physical health and self-defense. And so for me, that's a very important thing that was missing in a lot of the revivalist Bartitsu, which I feel is very, very important to the core of it. The people are going to the original Bartitsu club and they're doing, Indian weights, they're doing kind of calisthenic exercises, they're doing lots and lots of things to improve their fitness, and they're boxing, wrestling, fighting, fencing to prove that it works.
Yeah, excellent. Is there a philosophical side to Bartitsu? Is there a philosophy behind it?
There isn't a philosophy behind it. I would say, unlike a lot of Eastern arts, so Eastern arts come with a lot of etiquette and traditions and bowing and so on. Original Bartitsu obviously has a bit of a social or an economic standing, in that the people that went to the original Bartitsu club were gentlemen. These are kind of the wealthier, kind of higher status people in society, and that came at the time with a lot of image. You had to save face. So one of the reasons why a lot of the wealthier people started to get into fitness and fighting was that they started to realize that you feel you're at the top of the food chain, but any one young lad working in the docks can absolutely batter you, take your money and steal your missus if he wanted to, and there's nothing you can do about it. People started to get scared. So while there's no strict philosophical side to it, the original arts were very conscious of their social standing and that they had a lot to lose. And people with a lot to lose it often unless they know how to defend it. You see, you take like the average tourist and they go through a favela in Rio de Janeiro, they're going to get mugged. They're going to get mugged because you've got more than what other people have got. It's the same thing. If you're a gentleman moving through London, you don't want to be essentially mugged off. You don't want to look like an idiot, and lose everything that you feel you're entitled to. So there is that side. It does carry through some Japanese kind of philosophical etiquette values to it, because at least a third of the art is jiu-jitsu. but he didn't really make a great deal about advertising that. Talked about principles like Mizushi, off balancing people and so on, but in terms of pure philosophy, not much. But there's a guy called James Marwood that was early on the scene in Bartitsu, and he sums it up very nicely. He says it's about artifice and vehemence. So tricking people, artifice, essentially what you refer to in modern days, like using the fence, using distractions, being able to pull an improvised weapon, and vehemence, just absolutely destroying people. In between those two things is Bartitsu, I think.
Yeah. Do you think the original Bartitsu had much sort of influence from the Eastern martial arts?
Absolutely. A huge portion of it is jiu-jitsu. So I'd say the techniques they took from jiu-jitsu, but the methodology they took from Western arts, pressure testing, at that time, judo was kind of rocking the Japanese martial arts world because they were actually throwing each other, actually doing stuff. But in the main, Japanese martial arts did not do that. So, Barton Wright applied a Western methodology, how to train, how to work with different instructors. A Japanese instructor would never encourage you to work with other instructors, ever. Some of them are still funny about it today. Yeah. Whereas Barton Wright, he opens his club and he invites all these people that are better than him at pretty much everything. Yeah. Eastern, Western instructors, they're all better than Barton Wright, and he pulls them together. So I'd say, yes, there is, a big Japanese influence, but how it was trained and how it was taught was Western. Yeah. And it was designed for people staying safe in Victorian Britain, essentially, and that had its own differences to how you might be attacked in, Victorian Japan.
Yeah, exactly. You've also published a book, Self-Published, and how did that come about?
So there is no real modern Bartitsu books. There are a couple of people doing YouTube videos and things, but most Bartitsu books are old magazine articles or old bits of book smashed together and sold to people. And for things like the history of Bartitsu and how it generated, that's cool. That makes perfect sense. But there was nothing out there where an experienced martial artist or a new martial artist can pick up and see the techniques individually and then how they flow together. There's nothing out there. And I love books. As much as I enjoy martial arts videos, you always lose your subscription. You lose the password once you never get it back. I like having a proper book. And so it's very hard to condense a lot of arts into one book, but I feel like I've done Bartitsu some justice with it. There's enough in there that people can be proficient in pretty much all of the ranges in Bartitsu.
Yeah, I love books myself now. My wife's constantly giving out about my library at home, but can we expect a Tommy Moore DVD in the future?
I hope so. Yes. I mean, I like seminar teaching. So I've recently moved down from the Midlands down to near London in Epping, and that's obviously I have to restart a class. I have to change a class. I've moved location. What I do enjoy is teaching intensive seminars around topics, and so what I might start to do is start filming those seminars first. I feel like as soon as you turn it into an instructional video, it loses some of the magic, whereas a filmed seminar keeps it, because you need to play off people and you need to, in that video, you need to see how people are getting it wrong. If it's just you doing it in the video all the time, it's going to be pretty good most of the time. You want to be able to say, look at him, he's flaring his elbow out there. That's something you need to watch out for. So I'll probably start to film some seminars on bare knuckle boxing, savat, those types of elements as I go, but probably next year now.
Is there a big following for Bartitsu in the UK at the minute?
I wouldn't say a big following, but I think that I'm trying really hard to get normal martial arts people to look at it. HEMA exists in a kind of social bubble. People just don't know about it. It's really kind of out there on the spectrum of what martial arts is and does. And so what I try and do is when I make my Bartitsu stuff, I share it to the HEMA community, but also get it out there on Krav Maga forums, martial arts forums. I try and get myself in normal martial arts events and do things with people, because if you don't put in that work, no one's ever going to hear about it, and it's just going to stay obscure. I don't for one second believe it's ever going to be a mainstream martial art. But in the past 12 months of probably me talking about it, I would say that a lot more people know about it now, and that's just one person. If more people can do that, that's really cool. I'm really big on variety in martial arts, and I feel it's good to bring something new to the table. There are a billion clones of Krav Maga. There are a billion clones of the Casey fighting method. You know, there are billions of clones of all these different systems. You know, I enjoy bringing something a little bit different to the table if I can.
Yeah. Is it true as well that Bartitsu was actually used in the Sherlock Holmes movies?
So what they do, they take hints of it. So, for example, in the early Sherlock Holmes movies, you see him using a vertical fist, which is, you know, par for the course in Edwardian and Victorian boxing, using a vertical fist. Then you've got Robert Downey Jr. He's using a vertical fist. You know, he's doing things that are similar, but they've given him, because of his background, a more Wing Chun inspired fighting style, because that's what Robert Downey Jr. likes. And it's a movie. You know, no one ever thinks the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes is ever going to be accurate. But I do think they pay enough respect to it and enough homage to it. You know, in that first scene, he's fighting a bare knuckle boxer, and he decides to use kicks and slaps and other things to kind of level the playing field. You know, and that's what Btitsu would do. If you're weak in one area, you try something else. If you can't wrestle, you're going to have to strike your way through it. If you can't strike, you'll have to wrestle your way through it. You know, it's being able to be adaptable and have the skills where you need them.
Yeah. Do you think technology is going to play a big part in making Bartitsu more popular, especially during the current virus, where people are searching more?
You need martial arts to get people. You need technology to make people pay attention. You need social media, but you also need that FaceTime as well. You need to go to those events and those seminars, because people will watch your video and they'll either like it or they won't. They'll be like, that works, so that's bullshit. And that's cool. People, you know, they're always entitled to those opinions. It's only when you meet people face to face and you do something on them or you do something with them that they start to really value something. So technology is really important, but you can't forget that you also need to turn up at the gyms, turn up at the leisure centres. You need to spar with people, wrestle with people. You know, martial arts it's not a one-man tango. You know, you eventually have to lay hands on people.
That's it.
So it has to happen.
Yeah. And finally, how can people get in contact with you, Tommy, and find out more about Btitsu?
So the easiest way is if you search on Facebook, the Btitsu Lab, you'll see me pop up. You can also go on the Btitsu Lab on YouTube, and I've got hundreds of hours of bits of video on there and everything I make as part of my club. And I'm always happy to answer things for people or do demonstrations, or if there's anything people are interested in, I'm always happy to show and share. You know, it means a lot to me to share martial arts with whoever I speak to. That's
perfect. Well, thank you, Tommy. It was a pleasure having you on, and all the best with the book.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And good luck.
Brilliant. Cheers, buddy. Thank you.
Cheers.